When I tell you to think of a horror game, what comes to mind? Might it be the claustrophobic Southern Gothic nightmare of Resident Evil 7? The cryptic and obscure fever dream that is Garage Bad Dream Adventure? Or might it be those other releases that you just can't explain? Since the dawn of gaming, the adoration for horror media has reigned supreme. Countless AAA and indie horror titles have come and gone, many of which had set new standards in how to truly drive the feeling of dread. From the deprivation of resources to jump scares when you least expect them, horror games thrive on a little concept called the fear of the unknown. In nearly every horror game out there, you can almost never expect what's around the next corner, can never quickly turn around to defend yourself. You are stripped of all sense of power, confined to a narrow field of view, and are continuously oblivious to what next any given game will throw your way. A couple weeks before my daughter was born, I embarked on an internet hunt for some of the creepiest horror games ever made. I prowled through forum after forum, post after post in search of something that would scare the absolute shit out of me. And while it was a longer hunt than I'd care to admit, I surprisingly found one that came up time and time again. But imagine my surprise when I learned that this game defied every convention of the horror giants that came before it. Imagine my surprise when I learned that it's a simple top-down survival game. And imagine my surprise when I found out that this experience was handcrafted by just 3 people. It's one of the creepiest games ever made, they say. And you guys saw the title. Tonight, we're talking about Darkwood. Taking place in 1987 Poland, Darkwood's a survival game that places you in the midst of a mysterious forest ravaged by an unknown plague. Trees and foliage are sprouting up and spreading at an alarming rate. Entire villages are becoming isolated, roads previously connecting society destroyed by an affliction inexplicable. None of the tools or methods that anyone uses to try to break through are effective, as these trees are oddly resilient, connected, and, at times, seemingly alive. Furthermore, the people here are changing, their minds slipping further and further into insanity, while their physical bodies become so distorted that they lose all sense of humanity. The fabric of society has been ravaged, ordinary life a distant memory, and while inside the Darkwood, all hope of ever escaping is gone. Darkwood's gameplay loop involves 2 contrasting mechanics. Explore the forest by day, collecting resources and notes to piece together what exactly happened to its world. And by night, barricade your shelter and fend off horrors unknown, all the while praying for the morning light. You see, things change here after dark, and creatures otherwise hidden away come out to torment us. Because of this, much of this experience leaves us with the constant anxiety of racing the clock and managing our limited inventory slots as we're faced with the enduring decision of what exactly to bring back to our home base. Do we stock up on wood and nails that we can use to reinforce our shelter? Or do we grab these weapon parts to potentially craft a firearm? It's this line of thought that bleeds into every facet of Darkwood, as not only are we to navigate this barren world alone, but we're left to do so through a map that's randomly generated on every playthrough. This means that at no point will you ever be able to pause to consult a guide, as every experience is randomized, and there's absolutely no hand-holding, leaving you with the sentiment of feeling truly and unapologetically alone. This game is grueling, yet it wears that notion on its sleeve. It harbors an intensely unsettling world that doesn't care about you. In fact, its very first loading screen tells you this and serves as somewhat of a mantra for our journey to come. You are playing a challenging and unforgiving game, it claims. You will not be led by the hand. Respect the woods, be patient, and focus.
I see hatred and fear in their eyes. As if I was responsible for the spreading disease. As if I were the source for all the misery plaguing this land. I have nowhere to hide from them, nowhere to run. The woods have closed us off from the outside world. We're all doomed.
When Darkwood's prologue begins, we take the role of what appears to be an old man, some sort of doctor evident by the medical notes and supplies scattered around his home. Given the opening sequence, it's clear that the surrounding inhabitants, wherever they may be, appear to harbor contempt towards him, blaming him for the inexplicable, raging disease affecting them. According to this book strewn about the floor, we can see that it infects their skin. However, considering just how far the state of their world has regressed, it appears that this is merely the beginning of something much more dire. The doctor notes that we're running low on generator fuel before recalling a broken down tractor out east. And so we find the key to the front door and head outside. Before. On the ground before him lies a dog. His dog, desperately clinging to life. To make matters worse, just a few feet past them, we'll find an axe, something that was placed here intentionally. It's here where Darkwood gives us our first moral dilemma, something we'll increasingly come face to face with as our journey continues. Do we put this dog out of its misery, saving it from a fate potentially worse than death itself? Or do we spare it, confining it to die on its own, out of sight and out of mind? The existence of this dog is so inconsequential, and it doesn't affect us. So, which choice will we make? After cutting up a massive tree that we note suddenly appeared on the path outward, we're given our first taste of the surrounding world. Everything appears overgrown and claustrophobic. The wildlife seems to meld with vegetation and human corpses. Tree roots sprawl from the ground like a maze of veins comprising of something much larger.
The woods have devoured all the roads that connected us to the outside world,
we claim.
No one is able to pass through this thicket.
Guided by the flickering light of our makeshift torch, we continue into the pitch-black darkness caused by the sudden overgrowth of plant life. We continue to pass corpses that we can hardly discern, before, out of nowhere, we discover a man clinging to life in a small clearing. We notice that this guy is an outsider. He isn't from the Darkwood, and if he stumbled his way here, surely he knows the way out. We rummage through his bag, discovering a big metal key that we theorize leads to an exit out of these woods. and upon examining it, we find that it's tagged with the number 21. No further context, no direction, just quite literally a key to freedom, taunting us in the face.
He's unconscious. I've never seen him around here before. He's only carrying a key and some journal. Since he managed to sneak in here, he must know how to get out. Of course, he won't help me voluntarily. But that is of no importance.
After injecting the man with an unknown substance, the doctor claims that he can hear someone constantly calling him to return home. He beats the man who never relents. His anger only growing because of the harrowing reality that his only means of escape is quite literally in his hand, yet he has not a sliver of knowledge on where to use it. What good is a key if you can never find its lock? At this point, Darkwood takes a fundamental shift, and from here on, we no longer control the Doctor in any capacity, instead left to take the role of a stranger we know nothing about. Now, while this otherwise wouldn't be an issue, our key is gone, and our journal decimated. We are left with nothing, nowhere to turn, nothing to reference. We are just as helpless as anyone, with not a clue on where to go. After healing up with some makeshift bandages and escaping the room, we're able to gather a more intimate look into the Doctor's life. A bloodied medical bed sits in the back room. Cages adorn the floor just big enough for human bodies, and neglected tools and syringes are scattered everywhere. Whatever this man was doing was clearly inhumane, and God knows what our fate would have been had we not escaped. As we explore, we begin to notice that something is wrong, though. Because the Doctor had injected us with that unknown substance, we're beginning to experience bizarre hallucinations. Strange sounds emanate from places just out of view. What was once a simple radio on the floor has transformed into a man with radio dials for eyes. And completely out of nowhere, through the static, we hear a code. After unlocking this door, a hostage locked inside pleads for our help. We follow his plea and make our way to him. However, before we even have time to register, This man was unarmed, and for all intents and purposes, could have been helped if he hadn't attacked us. Because the doctor had him locked up here for God knows how long, injecting and experimenting on him with whatever substance he could drum up, this man had completely lost his mind. He had no idea who we were, no idea if we were going to harm him. He was simply fighting for his life, yet in this circumstance, we were the one with the weapon. After grabbing a plastic chick off its corpse, we begin to reflect on what just happened. Before, again, it happens. The corpse begins laughing, taunting us with the idea that perhaps we did him a favor, because who would want to live in a world like this anyway? How are we going to manage on our own, he asks. How are we going to get out now? The tension continues to grow before we hear someone breaking in. Something has found us, yet before we can even think about fighting back, on the brink of death, a man reaches out to help, guiding us to an area completely unforeseen. We'll soon be completely on our own, and while we might feel safe, if even for a moment, what lurks inside the forest is unlike anything we could have ever anticipated. This, my friends, is where Darkwood really begins, and so too the rabbit hole of one of the darkest games that I have ever played.
We'll return after these messages.
Alright guys, before we continue, I'd like to talk about tonight's video sponsor, Incogni. Alright, so just last month, Panera Bread of all companies was hacked by bad actors who harvested data from over 5.1 million customers. Turns out that this isn't just an online thing anymore, as anyone who shops anywhere can become a victim of data theft. Anything from medical records, credit cards, names, addresses, emails, you name it could be out there, leaving us all wide open as potential victims of fraud. Enter Incogni, a service that I've been using for years that's been scouring the internet for any traces of my info and submitting demands to have it removed. A few months ago, I had signed up for their Family Unlimited plan, which, alongside their regular Unlimited plan, grants access to Incogni's service and their custom removals feature, which allows us to report any online traces of our info to Incogni that may have slipped under the radar. It gives peace of mind for not only myself, but for my loved ones too. Go to incogni.com/Nexpo and use code Nexpo for 60% off. Incogni helps wipe yourself from the internet completely. They can't harm you if they can't find you. Click the link below to claim your 60% off and get your personal data off the market. Thank you so much again to Incogni. Now let's get back to it. We awaken in a home, disoriented and confused. This shelter is incredibly run down, with nothing but a handful of wardrobes, a bed, some bear traps, and a generator. In our inventory, we have none of what we obtained from the doctor's home, and so we're left to the mercy of whatever scraps may have been left behind by those who inhabited this place before us. Curiously, central to the home is a strange oven with hoses sprawling from it. And upon examination, the stranger notes that it emanates a familiar scent, something known as a protective substance that can give them relative safety after dark. Now, something to note about Darkwood is that this story takes place in medias res. The stranger already has experience and his own motivations with this forest. I mean, he made his way in here before being captured by the doctor. He had a journal with who knows how many pages of notes. And there's this intimate familiarity with the mechanics of this world that we as a player aren't yet aware of. For instance, he already knew about the oven and its purpose. He makes a comment about this being one of many hideouts scattered across the land. He seems to have awareness about the perils of nightfall, and he journals about how he no longer has a need for food or water. In many ways, the stranger is just as much of a mystery as anything else here. We have no idea who he is or why he's here, yet we're left to blindly guide him into the abyss. Back to the oven. Upon examining it, we'll find that it serves two purposes. One, of course, providing safety after nightfall, and the second, allowing us to obtain perks by cooking and injecting ourselves with mushrooms that we'll find around the forest. Keep this in mind. We'll come back to it later. After rummaging around the home in search of resources, we discover a rag, some nails, and a strange photograph labeled the road home. And upon making our way outside, we find the generator, which we note hardly has enough fuel to last one more night. We further remark that the home above the so-called underground entrance should have some more, and so we dig out our map to find that, well, X marks the spot. The underground entrance. It sounds curious, and if this is what I think it is, then it just might be our ticket out of here. We head out, equipped with nothing but our own brass balls since we don't yet have a weapon. We don't quite know where we're going, but our map says that this place is south, and so south we go. Interestingly, Darkwood's map works in a way to where we'll never know exactly where we are at any given time, instead leaving us to orient ourselves by discovering landmarks scattered around the region. Once we find one, we mark it on our map, using this to determine where we are in relation to other waypoints. Of course, that is, if there are others around us to find. Upon arrival to the location of the underground entrance, we discover yet another rundown home. Inside, we find a plethora of supplies that quickly fill up our limited inventory, and after making our way to the wardrobe in the bedroom, we, like we theorized, uncover a full can of gasoline. Interestingly, we notice that a room seems to be hidden behind it, and after pushing the wardrobe out of the way, we uncover a small room with a group of large mushrooms, and bingo, an inconspicuous trapdoor. Once inside, we discovered that this place is in complete disrepair. We note that tree roots have destroyed the westward path, that this place is damp, cold, and is one wrong step away from total collapse. And upon examining things for ourselves, we notice that the growths inside appear almost like they're pulsating. What tree does this? What exactly are we looking at? We continue through the darkness, guided again by the lowly light from our torch. Beings unknown crawling around us, while the echoes of mushrooms and death resonate from the depths. Wherever we are is vastly different from how the stranger remembers it, but there's nowhere else to go but onward. Before long, we reach the end of our path and come face to face with a massive door. Adorned with the number 21, we note that because of the dust lying on the handle, the door seems to have not been opened in about 2 weeks. So good news, the doctor hasn't found it. The not so good news? We have no idea where the hell he ran off to. After pressing our ear against the keyhole, we can hear the faint sound of wind, and upon taking a peek, an inviting, distant light. If I were a betting man, I'd say that this is our way home. However, there's nothing we can do about that now. And so, a small earthquake rattles the cave, and someone or something has awoken. After making our way back out, and with absolutely no idea where the hell the doctor ran off to, we decide that it's time to make our way back to our hideout. We have no clue what time it is, and if that creature in the cave is anything to go by, I don't exactly want to stick around here to encounter it. And so, with our new loot in hand, we return to home base. We fill up the generator, we craft a crude weapon with some boards and nails, and we cook, Jesse. We cook with the mushrooms that we gathered from the cave before injecting them and allowing us to gain our first perk. Curiously, we'll find that Darkwood's perks come at the cost of a drawback, and while there's only one to pick currently, this mechanic will only become more complex later. Furthermore, these injections come with a very noteworthy side effect. However, we'll circle back to that down the road. We notice that daylight is dwindling, the sunlight becoming more orange as nightfall begins to take its grip. We didn't gather enough resources to barricade every window and door in here, but we're going to have to make do regardless. And so we wait, quietly, hesitantly, and pray that tonight we survive. Nights in Darkwood are a far cry from everything we've seen so far. The atmosphere becomes suffocating, shattered by only the sound of our own footsteps and others circling around us. We take refuge in the only room we feel safe, sticking by the only light source in here like a moth to a flame. The fear of the unknown. That is what darkness here does so well, because for God knows how long, we are entirely at the mercy of this forest. So we wait, seconds feeling like minutes, minutes like hours. But right as our anxiety begins to reach its peak, an unexpected, comforting synth begins to fade in, growing louder and louder, until we survive the night. This is morning in Darkwood, our only opportunity for respite. Here, time is frozen as we're given the opportunity to gather our bearings, repair our weapons, fix up our hideout, and catch up with an old friend. It's the man who saved us. Someone who, upon gathering a closer look, we note looks disturbingly familiar. The man is pale, and his clothes appear to be deeply integrated with his body. There's something unnatural about his appearance, and even more so when we realize that he cannot even speak. The good news is, though, that he isn't a threat, and on the palm of his hand, his only method of communicating, he writes out a simple phrase. We need to stick together, brother." He pulls out a large sack, revealing that he's a wandering trader. And upon going through his inventory, we learn that he carries a ton of loot that looks like it may be valuable down the road. Now, the currency in Darkwood works through something called reputation, and if we survive the night, we'll gain a specified amount each morning for trading. After replenishing our resources and taking a glance around our map, we decide to set off into an area previously unexplored. We still have no idea where the doctor is, and we're grossly under-equipped for when something finds us during the night. So we've got to stock up wherever and whenever we can. In our venture, we encounter a burned-down house surrounded by dogs. A strange ritual site inhabited by a creature known as a savage who flees, leaving behind this thing called a shiny stone. And we happen upon a logging camp, chock full of valuable wood and nails that we can bank back at our hideout. Curiously, though, there's also this other place that raises an eyebrow. And it's a makeshift camp inhabited by someone called Wolfman. Upon interacting with them, we realize that this person, or creature, has the head of a wolf. He isn't wearing a wolf mask, he's a wolf man who can talk. This guy is snide. He's kind of an asshole, but he approaches us with an offer. He claims to know what it is that we're after, and that he can help us reclaim it, yet only under one condition. We need to find him in a place called the Silent Forest, the neighboring biome to the dry meadow we're currently exploring. He informs us that we're unfit, that we need to prepare before setting out, and goes on to mark the location of his new camp for when we get there. Following this, we gain the option to gossip with him about the happenings around the forest, and upon doing so, he makes a remark about a strange wedding that's been taking place at the edge of the forest for as long as he can remember. Music seems to be echoing from it, however, not a soul seems to be around. What's going on inside? That's for us to find out. And so, with 2 waypoints in the back of our mind, we set out to explore for the rest of the day. We scour the outskirts of the dry meadow in search of anything resembling this elusive wedding, yet come up empty-handed. Instead, though, we end up finding this. This massive overgrowth, simply called the brook. Because of the gargantuan tree roots sprawling in every direction, there's only one narrow pathway inside, and upon heading in and firing up the generator, we come to find that beneath all of this mess was, at one point, someone's home. A lamp, a chair, a wardrobe, all the remnants of a life gone are still here. And if we take a peek at the very edge of our field of view, it's almost like we can make out a body, pulsating, disfigured, seemingly mutating into something inhuman. I'm led to believe that this person is the former inhabitant of this place. However, this would mean that this forest is growing at a rate hitherto unseen. We know back from the doctor's home that this infection has an effect on human beings and their skin. So is this what it progresses into? How fast, truly, is this forest growing? With nightfall imminent, we set off back home. We drop off our loot, prepare some wood, and barricade our shelter. Night 2 is near, but what will it bring us? You may recall that Night 1 was relatively uneventful. In hindsight, I'd like to call it a starter night. Something to grease our gears because things will only ramp up from here. I believe Darkwood was made this way intentionally, though, because for a new player, the expectation of a threat is oftentimes more anxiety-inducing than the threat itself. From night 2 and on, Darkwood's mind games considerably ramp up. Our lamps begin to flicker at random. Doors open on their own with no one there to greet us. And when we least expect it, someone's at the door. We have no idea who it was, but someone left an invitation with the code, calling us to the very same wedding the Wolfman mentioned just yesterday. So what the hell is the deal with this place, and why are we constantly being called to it? We return to the safety of our room. The barricades are our only line of defense between whatever's out there and a sudden death. We nervously peek through our windows, glimpses of savages narrowly escaping our view. Time feels slower at night, so how much longer can we hold out? Can we hold out? At the dawn of day 3, we decide to investigate this mysterious wedding. We've had 2 separate nudges to this location, and so we ventured to the area hinted at on the card and eventually stumble upon a large crop field. Curiously, a trail of flower petals can be seen leading into it, and upon following it through, we discover a large abandoned harvester and a mutated dog chained up outside of a dilapidated structure. When we head in, we discover that this entire place is full of decor, while a bride dances in the courtyard, completely alone. She seems completely oblivious to everything around her, almost like she's stuck in a trance. To her right is a locked door, and after inputting the code and making our way inside, we gain this sudden, eerie sensation that we're being watched. Darkness consumes the environment around us. A radio echoes from the depths, and an ominous, repetitive banging pulses in our ear. We're not quite sure why we were called here, but we have this overwhelming sentiment that something is wrong. After looting what we can and making our way around the back of the home, we vault over a window to find ourselves in a reception hall. The banging is growing louder, and upon following it, we discover a man slamming his head against the table, perfectly in sync with the music's rhythm. He acknowledges us. We've been waiting for you. Yet who this we is, we're not quite sure. A bit put off, we head north through the open door to find ourselves in a wooded area. Dancing brides begin to appear in every direction, each inviting us to join them. Curiously, there's no other exit to this place, and while it's eerie, these beings thankfully aren't a threat. So far. Hesitantly, we trace our steps back to the reception area. However, right as we pass through this door, the man is gone. There's no way out. And the bride mutates into a being unlike anything we've ever seen. Her entire body has split in half, and in a total rage, she charges at us over and over again. This thing is incredibly powerful, and if we can manage to land a hit on her, we quickly find that our lowly nailboard does next to nothing to her. Our reward for doing this entire quest was a piece of fine fabric, something we can use back at our workbench to give us 2 more inventory slots or another spot on our hotbar. And while this is one of the best upgrades you can get, the resources I used to get here was far from inconsequential. You see, in Darkwood, the items in each biome are finite. Once you find them and use them up, they're gone. Conversely, every time we die in this world, the adversaries in the area respawn, meaning that if we spend too much time here without heeding the Wolfman's request, without moving on into the unknown, we can become trapped, just like everyone else around us. This entire quest was optional, yet it's one of the creepiest in the game. The setup, the ambush, the reminder that we are entirely at the mercy of what lurks here is all but a glimpse of what's soon to come. The Silent Forest. That is where the Wolfman directed us, and that, my friends, is where we're soon headed. Once we make it to the Silent Forest entrance, we find that the woods have morphed into a foreboding thicket of trees. Much like the back area from the wedding, everything feels claustrophobic, and darkness is enveloping. We find a house, the generator already on. On the ground, huge bugs scurry towards massive holes, and poisonous worms block our path. We loot the wardrobe and shelves inside to discover matchsticks, gasoline, and rags, and upon putting 2 and 2 together, we realize that these worms can be killed with fire. We toss a spare Molotov cocktail and craft another torch to handle these things, and as we progress further inward, we gather this odd sensation, much like the wedding, that we aren't the only ones here. We make it to the back room, a flickering lamp calling to us, and just around this corner, we're ambushed by a savage, and this one isn't docile. Once we manage to kill it, we return to its room to find a wardrobe. Inside, a handful of pills, a bottle, a rag, and a note. The door code is 3333. It can't get any easier. Remember it. I'm not opening that door after dark anymore. I went to get some gasoline from the pig shed. I'll be back after dark. After finding the door this note is referencing and entering the code, we head through to find someone lying on the ground. It's something called a sleeper, and on their body are 2 shotgun shells and a map. Curiously, once we grab them, the game marks 2 locations on our map: the Silent Forest hideout and the home of someone named Piotrek. It's an interesting find, sure. Yet right as we begin our descent into the Silent Forest, this person suddenly snaps to life. In the last hideout, look for an exit beneath the floor. So this person, this entire time, has been aware of their surroundings. So what in the world happened to them? Why aren't they trying to leave? Why don't they get up and join us? Why are they simply accepting their fate, cowering to die here alone. Given the dialogue, this person seems perfectly content, even though their circumstances are abysmal. So how does this make any sort of sense? After taking note of their advice, we leave the sleeper behind and embark straight towards the Silent Forest hideout. Savages groan from the depths. Bear traps are everywhere. We're far from where we started, but we're in too deep to turn back. This is the Silent Forest, and this is where the real challenge begins. After stumbling through the dark, we finally encounter the Silent Forest hideout. This property is much larger than the one in the dry meadow, with the home itself considerably more exposed. The outer walls are completely destroyed, which means that we'll have to strategize carefully, because I have a funny feeling that dogs aren't the only creatures that'll find us here. As we approach the workbench, we quickly realize that we have a slight problem. None of our stuff is here, and all we're left with is this inconspicuous bike bell. Upon ringing it, we notice that something's happening, and after taking a look outside, someone has found us. Someone called the Bike Man. Before us is a weary character whose head dangles to the ground. He approaches us with an offer. He's thirsty, he claims. He wants a bottle of alcohol if we have one, and in return, he'll bring all of our things to us from the dry meadow hideout. Conveniently, there was already a spare bottle in the wardrobe inside, and so, upon handing it to him, he heads off while we get settled in here. As we become acquainted with our new abode, we notice that the sky is darkening. We don't have any of our wood or nails to barricade this place, and all we can do at this point is loot mushrooms and scavenge the resources currently available to us. After doing so, we return to the oven, light it up, and distill all the mushrooms we just gathered, before realizing that, well, alright, we have enough for another perk. It's a great discovery with a great selection, sure. However, it's once we hit confirm, yeah, so I think we need to take a quick tangent. So, that side effect that I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it actually causes us to experience vivid, ethereal nightmares. Some are incredibly cozy, others not so much. No matter what, though, all of them seem to be telling us something, warning us about things we don't fully understand. In our first dream, we wake up back at the underground tunnel, wielding nothing but a flashlight. Corpses litter the ground around us, and in the darkness, someone calls out. As we head in their direction, the person scurries off, and upon pursuing them, we come face to face with door 21. The door opens, the voice guiding us through. We aren't quite sure where they're taking us, but this forest that we're now confined to is dense with fog. It contains remnants of our life back home. Trails of shiny stones, and for some reason, there's a lamp, an out-of-place lamp awaiting us. after flipping it on, the environment completely changes, revealing hundreds of writhing bodies. These people are all breathing, under the influence of who knows what, and are physically identical to the sleeper we saw earlier. As we walk around, the lamp's light suddenly grows, and upon returning to it, we find that somehow it's transformed into a fetus, emitting an overpowering white glow. Entirely confused, we interact with it, to which the environment reverts to the forest. We have no idea what the hell that was or why it was there, but it has to mean something, right? I mean, nightmare aside, why was this shown to us? And why were there countless bodies surrounding it? It's like they were called to it somehow, but where it came from, we have no clue. After following a trail of shiny stones, we discover a bed, and after lying in it, we return to reality, our depressing, hopeless reality. After surviving our first night in the Silent Forest, we explore our hideout to find the trader awaiting us, and upon talking to him, he greets us with a strange message. "There's no way out of here, brother. We're stuck with each other." It seems that this guy is harboring a growing sense of pessimism, his previous invitation about sticking together appearing to be literal to him. This means that either there truly is no way out of the Dark One, or he doesn't want us to leave, and both possibilities are equally unsettling. After stocking up on supplies and organizing our inventory, we decide to set out for the day. We set our sights on Piotrek and set off. Only to be reminded of just how dark and how perilous the Silent Forest truly is. When we make our way to his location, we find that this Piotrek character lives on an admittedly large yet decrepit property. In his house, we note that it looks like a scrap metal warehouse and that fungus and spiderwebs cover the walls. In a crate on the ground, we discover some tape, a battery, and a postcard from 1961. It's a photo of a Soviet pilot named Yuri Gagarin holding a white dove with the phrase written across it. 1961. The sky is dark and the earth blue. We continue to investigate and try to open a locked metal door. And in response, Piotrek calls out, informing us that he's not coming out until the so-called beast in his garage is gone. Now, whatever this is must be a considerable threat for this guy to hole himself up like this. And so we head next door to find that this beast, yeah, it might just be a dog. After taking the dog out, we make our way back to Piotrek and talk to him, only to find that he's a bit of an eccentric character. A makeshift wire hat with two antennae lie atop his head. A model rocket ship sits in his backpack, and a cluster of watches are wrapped around his wrist. Straight off the bat, it appears that this man isn't all there, and this point is only compounded when we take a look at his wordage. He speaks like a child, harping on about spaceflight and his undying fascination with aircrafts. He goes on to explain that he's building a rocket of his very own, a vehicle to fulfill his dream of soaring amongst the stars. And to this point, he asks for our help. If we could, we're to keep an eye out for tractors around the Darkwood, as these supposedly contain vital elements for his ship. Scrap like old batteries, steering wheels, and tires are going to help him live out his dream, and so we're tasked with finding and bringing them back to him. Now, at first, this seems like an innocent request, yet it's something that he can't actually be serious about, right? It's when we take a look outside, coming face to face with a previous, destroyed craft he once worked on, though, when we discern that this man, he's completely serious. If he follows through with this, then it's undoubtedly a death sentence. But with someone so far gone, so confined and alone, with no one to speak any sort of sense into him, there's no way that he would ever realize this. After leaving Piotrek, we venture at last towards the Wolfman. It's finally time to get the hell out of here, and so we track down his second camp and give him a friendly hello. Straight off the bat, he expresses surprise. He didn't expect us to get this far, however, he's glad we did, because yet again, he's got a task for us. Supposedly, there's a village on the southern edge of the Silent Forest, a community of people that he, for some reason, can't stand. There's a woman there, one that reeks of chickens, and as it turns out, she's apparently hoarding something that doesn't belong to her. The Wolfman instructs us to talk to her, obtain and deliver one of her keys to him, and then, and only then, will he help us find the thing we lost. Okay. You've got us on the runaround, Wolf, but okay, we'll humor you. If this village is what we think it is, then that means that there just might be others like us out there. These people could have food and shelter, all things that we've been brutally deprived of. Who knows what's out there? The possibilities are endless. This place is nothing like we hoped, yet everything we expected. The villagers here are devoid of any sense of hope. Rotting corpses of pigs litter the ground in every direction. We can find a man banging on the window of the mayor's home, enraged at his lack of food allocation for the month. And in a random home, a person cowers, either infected or hopeless at their situation, or perhaps both. Another expresses anger at the doctor, sitting next to the ashes of a fire that contain his burnt belongings. Yet, most haunting of all is what awaits us here. Central to the village is a locked compound, and upon picking the lock and making our way inside, we can find a black substance everywhere. We're inside some sort of storage facility, and to its rear are bread ovens in each corner. But it isn't until we make our way to the very back and open this specific door, though, when we're met with this. Piles of bodies surround us, charred and disfigured. It's a chamber of the infected, a place in which the residents agreed to rid of those that gave off symptoms. This disease, this affliction, had caused the villagers to become so far gone that they've resorted to killing each other en masse, And I can only imagine what they're thinking, considering that their food supply is dwindling. None of the doctor's remedies helped them. No longer are they receiving any distributions of meat. Everything about this place is falling apart. On the southern edge of the village, we discover a house in the dark, and upon making our way inside, we find that it's completely sealed off from the outside world. Strange markings are scrawled across the floor. The windows are covered, and the ambience around us is growing. But it isn't until we make our way to the very back room when we're faced with this. On the floor lies an infected villager writhing in agony. They claim that they can hear us, so their mind isn't completely gone. However, their physical condition appears on the brink of collapse. This person has holed themselves up here, their infection festering, thriving in the dark. Whatever's happening to them has convinced them to draw sigils all over their home. And, you know, now that we look at it, they do look familiar. The savage we saw from the dry meadow was surrounded by the exact same thing. So if this is what I think it is, then this person is likely days away from becoming one. This means that everything tormenting us in the forest, every savage we've seen so far, isn't just a random monster. They're villagers. The hollow, warped caricatures of those that once lived here. And so it seems that the epidemic plaguing this land is much more severe than we thought. This isn't just a skin infection, and the woods aren't the only thing here that's changing. Everything is warping, festering, mutating into a reality that we can hardly recognize. People are becoming inhuman. Others, trapped in an unexplainable euphoria, completely oblivious to the nightmare around them. Whatever this is one of the worst fates you can imagine. On the northwest side of the village lies an empty home, and inside, a relic that further drives this point home. It's a poem. What a joyous day. We shall meet again today. I hope she'll enjoy what I've prepared for her. She hasn't had an appetite lately, but it's okay. We have our ways around that, don't we? She must eat rich meals. I've dug out something delicious for her today. My queen. Only I can be close to her. No one else. No one. Now, while this might seem like the unhinged writings of a madman, it's when we take a look at the drawings above and below when things get a bit strange. At the top, we can see what appears to be a myriad of corpses, and at the bottom, a grotesque group of pigs. Now, this might seem like a stretch, but there's gotta be some correlation here. Why in the world are these visuals scrawled here on, of all things, a poem about feeding? It's safe to say that there's more to be told with this part of the story, and that's because not only are there 2 digits for a code next to a tear in the page, but also, as we were reading this, a new location was marked on our map. The pig shed. Let's keep this in mind. We'll come back to it later. As we embark towards the northeast side of the village, we encounter a strange sight. A woman sits alone, yet her home is completely destroyed. Upon examination, she says not a word to us, instead spending her days, quote, staring at the ground with a dead look. And behind her, a crate harboring a single yellow doll. All things considered, The discovery of this woman isn't entirely out of place considering the state of the village she lives in, and you wouldn't be faulted for assuming that there's nothing else here to find. It isn't until we leave her, however, when she finally breaks her silence and utters just 3 haunting words. For some reason, this woman wants a pig, likely the food source and the entire backbone of life in this village, dead. She is the only resident here who expresses contempt like this. But why? For the remainder of the game, she never speaks again. It's a fleeting remark with an unsettling implication and an explanation nowhere in sight. After leaving her residence and continuing east, we at last stumble upon a home surrounded by chickens. The front door's unlocked, and upon heading inside, we remark about how grimy the place is, as chicken feces and feathers are scattered in every corner. And once we make it to the living room, we finally find her. Someone called the Chicken Lady. Upon getting a closer look, we can see that this woman is in dismal shape. Her eyes are blackened and hollow. Her skin a sickly pale. Interestingly, we can hand the plastic chick from the man in the doctor's home to her, to which she surprisingly recognizes it. It belongs to her little brother Yannick, she claims, someone who, just a couple days prior, set off with a man claiming to be a doctor. She hasn't seen him since. While we hold back from telling her the true fate of Yannick, it further reinforces the fact that we, without even knowing it, killed a completely innocent man. He wasn't infected, he wasn't up to anything nefarious. He simply followed the doctor under the guise of gaining reprieve from this madness, yet without even knowing it, would be locked up, experimented on, and brutally killed. Except that last part, it was by us. You're all I have, my little sisters. A woman broken and alone. That is who the Chicken Lady truly is. While continuing to talk to her, she brings up another woman named Hanuska. She pities her, as supposedly she had given birth to what the villagers deemed an abomination. Supposedly, her baby was at one point taken by force, her home set on fire, and in the blaze, her husband would perish, and she would be left with nothing. No consolation, no collateral, just a painful existence. Wait a minute. This woman is Hanuska, isn't she? This would explain why she has such hatred for the village, why she's supporting this famine. They took everything from her, and all she can do is wait, praying for their demise. Kill the pig, she speaks. Kill the pig. As we wrap up our conversation, the Chicken Lady informs us about the sow, the source of all food in the village. Unfortunately, she's been sick lately, yet it hasn't seemed to slow her down in producing offspring for slaughter. Given the fact that we can find a handful of pigs roaming around the village, it's likely that this specific sow is who Hanuska is referring to, an animal that, if I had to guess, is being held here. Out of nowhere, our conversation's interrupted by the tune of ear-piercing music. Someone is outside, and to her dismay, has been playing non-stop for days. We head outside to see who it is, to which this person flees apologetically, and curious as to who the hell this guy is. Upon talking to this musician, he again apologizes before expressing shock at the fact that we were actually inside the Chicken Lady's home. He then inquires about something, or someone, locked up inside. a woman that he calls the Pretty Lady. Day after day, the musician watches her through the cracks in her window, playing music to one day win over her love. He supposedly obtained her wreath from the river during the last cupola night, an annual festival, and because of this, the two were supposed to marry. Because she's been locked up inside, though, this was never realized, and he has a hunch that the chicken lady just might be jealous of her. Following this, he goes forth to mention the key to her room. It's allegedly locked up in a man named Mr. Jan, or Yannick's home. However, the only known entrance currently available to us is somewhere near the village well. See what we can find and bring him the key, he asks, and perhaps soon he can live out his dream. A marriage with the one he loves. The one. Writhing in her room. You know, thinking back, we can recall that the Wolfman too was after a key, after what the chicken lady had locked up. Furthermore, he told us that it doesn't belong to her, a strange choice of words considering that you're talking about another person. So what exactly does he want with the Pretty Lady, and how the hell does he know about her? It's at this point where Darkwood gives us our first major choice. We can give the key to either Wolfman or to the musician, both of which will lead us down wildly diverging pathways. For the sake of this video, we're going to focus on the Wolfman's path, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't want the musician to get into any shit. He seems way too nice, and I have a feeling that this will not turn out well for him. He'll be sad, sure, but if that's the worst part of his life, then he's doing pretty well here. And so, with our mind locked in on finding this key, we embark straight towards the village well. We use a chain gathered from another home to repair it, and are granted the ability to venture straight into its depths. Inside, it becomes abundantly clear that something's been down here. Strange markings can be seen everywhere. Stick figures, faces, sigils, all the hallmarks of one infected. A creature groans in the distance. Tree roots resembling human flesh sprawl from every corner. The condition of this place is worse than anything we've seen prior. And it's clear that not a soul has been down here for a long, long time. We aimlessly navigate this cavern, anxious all the while about whatever's in here with us. And once we finally make it to a clearing, down here was a single red chomper, and on its body, this thing. This is Hanuska's baby. This is where the villagers discarded Hanuska's baby. For its entire life, it's known nothing but darkness, mutating and festering into a creature inhuman. It's unclear what condition her child was in when it was taken. But this bloodied, pitch-black hellhole, this is no environment for anyone. The chomper's a creature with a physical body completely split in half. It's a fate worse than a savage, worse than the mutated dogs. The very anatomy of the human form has melded into something that can hardly be conceptualized. Broken, deformed. Truly a monster. At the northern end of the cave, we finally notice a sliver of daylight, and after heading up and out, we find ourselves in the middle of Yannick's home. After harvesting some mushrooms and heading into the next room, we can find a dog tag belonging to him, a handful of chicken eggs, and at long last, the chicken lady's hidden key. With this elusive item finally in hand, it's here where we have yet another choice. We can hand this key over to either Wolfman or the musician immediately, or we can satisfy our curiosity a bit. You see, in the back of the chicken lady's home, we can find the pretty lady's room locked shut, and through the wall, the sound of groaning and labored breaths. So, do we leave her be, perhaps never getting a look at what's so highly sought after? Or do we unlock it ourselves for just a peek? Beneath the blanket lies a horribly disfigured and overgrown woman that pleads for us to cover her. She is so far gone, so distorted that she's past the point of ever being helped. Inside this cell, her body festers. Nothing about her is normal, nothing pretty, and this revelation leaves us to wonder what exactly the Wolfman wants with her. In a pile of sheets next to her bed, we can find a wedding ring. It seems that she may have been married before, but to whom, we have no clue. All in all, there's nothing else we can do here. No form of consolation. We can't even return her sheet to her. She's left to rot here, cold and alone, just like everyone else around her. It's at this point where we've seen just how dismal life truly is inside Darkwood. What began as a simple search for answers had, in reality, turned into a brutal examination of a community in ruin. Everyone here is suffering, and it only makes the task of escaping this place feel that much more daunting. We return to our hideout to hang it up for the night, because before we hand Wolfman this key, there's one more thing we've got to see. What's going on with the cell? And what awaits us inside the pig shed? It's the dawn of a new day, and we found our way to the pig shed. This place is an absolute mess, with the bloodied corpses of swine strewn about the ground. There are two main structures that make up this place, the barn and an outhouse, and running in between, we can find two cables connecting them, or at least, were connecting them. For some reason, they've been cut and need to be repaired by a spare cable, something we don't yet have. We have no idea what they're for or why this happened. However, upon following them into this home, we're able to glean an answer. Inside, we find a lever, and upon making our way into the next room, a hostile villager awaits. At the building's rear, we can find that the cables end at a generator. For some reason, these people are haphazardly feeding power to the barn the pigs are living in. Now, while this could be for lighting or something innocuous, it's when we begin to approach it when we realize that something is very off. I'm not sure about you, but to me, this isn't the sound of a sow. It's very likely that she resides somewhere in this building, though. So if this is what's making this noise, then what in the world is happening to her? Back in the home, a shattered mirror sits adjacent to the generator. And while this otherwise wouldn't be a huge deal, I mean, it's just a mirror anyway. Turns out that it's the only place in the entire game in which we can do this. For the first and only time, we take a look at ourselves. And much like everyone else here, our skin is a sickly pale. Our eyes look off. And nothing about our physical appearance is inviting. You are one ugly bastard, we tell ourselves. I guess you got what you deserved. We decide to finally investigate this mysterious lever, and upon getting a closer look, we realize that it's an extremely crude contraption with various cables stemming from it. Curiously, there's a metal plate preventing it from being activated completely, and upon reading the attached note, we learn that the entire point of all of this, the cable, the generator, and this lever, were all meant to momentarily stun the sow for feeding. Now, why in the world would they need to stun it? Filled with undying curiosity, we decide to pause here and head over to the main structure. We enter through a small opening before encountering two villagers having a conversation in the yard. But this exchange wouldn't simply be small talk, as something tragic has recently taken place. I told you he had it coming. He loved that pig, and she ate him. She wouldn't have eaten him if some fucker hadn't cut the cables. How the fuck didn't he get electrocuted? Who's going to feed it now? It's the only sow in the village. We'll starve if it dies. You know, we had a hunch that something weird was going on with the sow, and combined with the strange sounds behind the wall, the idea of stunning it for feedings, and the fact that this creature has become such a danger that it's consumed one of the villagers whole, it's becoming increasingly clear that this thing isn't an animal anymore. God knows what lies inside this building, and God knows what'll happen to us when we find out. As we approach the villagers, they immediately go on the offensive, and so we take them out, loot a pitchfork from them, and finally head in to see what awaits. Inside, another villager stands in our way. Behind him, droves of pigs living in squalor. We progress to the very back, passing carcasses and containers of unknown meat, before, at last, we find her. She has become unrecognizable, spiked limbs jutting out of her body with exposed flesh on her rear leg. This thing has growths all over it, fluid-filled sacs and spiraling appendages emerging from her back. To say that she's in abysmal condition would be doing her a disservice. She has deteriorated so much that I cannot even comprehend how she could ever provide any offspring. While this mutation may have been caused by the phenomenon in the Dark One, the wretchedness of man, that is what's keeping her alive. If we get too close, we take considerable damage. It appears that the sow sits here day in and day out, fluttering her legs in self-defense. And so it makes sense why the villagers stunned her, why her feedings are so laborious. However, who cut the cables? And why? It's here where we're given yet another choice with wildly differing consequences. Do we put the Sao out of its misery, shooting the villagers' hopes dead and condemning them to an eternal famine? Or do we leave it to suffer, cold and alone, while it's harvested for every bit of life it has left? We know that the villagers are assholes, but given their predicament, can we really blame them? Now, finding the culprit behind this cable is interesting. If we gather enough tractor parts, we can trade for one with Piotrek. However, the other one, well, that one can be found here. If we kill Hanuska, we can find just 2 items on her body, a knife and a cable. This was the person that sabotaged the feeding process, the one that caused this entire food shortage. The villagers took everything from her, burned her house, killed her husband, and threw her baby down the well. And with the rage growing within her day after day, she did the only thing she could afford to. Kill the pig, she murmurs, day in and day out. That is the only thing left in her life that would bring her any sliver of joy. In my journey, I decided to live out her request. Instead of killing her, I visited Piotrek and gave him tractor parts in exchange for reputation. Surprisingly, it was at this point where he told me that he had everything he needed for his rocket. And so, he thanked us before giving us a final farewell. I bought the cable and a map of the old woods from him, marking the location of the next hideout we're meant to find, and set off to finally kill the pig. I repaired the cable, fired up the generator, and set the lever to maximum power. And upon activating it, the Sao's life comes to an end. Curiously, next to her corpse we can find a note, the other half of the poem we found in the village home. It seems like it was the one tasked with feeding her that wrote these, and it reads the following. It's time for my piggies to go to bed, the great big mother piggy has said. So I'll count them first to see if all my piggies come back to me. 1 little piggy, 2 little piggies, 3 little piggies. Again, corpses and pigs adorn the page, and I think now we finally know what this drawing truly meant. The Sao was refusing to eat, and human bodies have been piling up day by day. This man claims that he dug up something delicious for her, and I don't think I need to explain much further what they're implying. They were feeding her human corpses, and in a world starved for resources, that was the only way they kept her alive. With the other half of the code in hand, I think it's time to head back to the village to see what it leads to. It's getting late though, so it'll have to wait for tomorrow. So, to the hideout we embark for yet another night in hell. It's the dawn of a new day, and everyone here is doomed. The Sao's rotting corpse has been dragged to the center of the village. Torches have been lit around it, and people pray and worship, hoping for a lifeline. If we thought life was in bad shape before, this This is absolute desperation. We follow the sow's blood trail north, passing bystanders who have entirely given up on life. And as we approach the mayor's home, the man outside informs us that the village leader needs to talk to us. We make our way inside and find that his home is completely empty. The bed in which he once lied, unoccupied. All that awaits is a trail of dirt. Something has been dragged in here, and it leads straight into his basement. He calls us further in, preparing something we have no idea about. The trails of dirt are now resembling something more akin to blood. As we approach his door, we finally realize why we were called here. And emerging from the dark, a red chomper. This sequence, actually no, this entire chapter of the game just leaves me feeling empty. These people are desperate. There's nothing to eat, nothing to heal the increasing number of infected. Truly, nothing more to live for. We head upstairs and exit the mayor's home, returning to the house next door to see what this code is for. Inside, we find a locked crate, and after entering the code and opening it, all that awaits is this. It's the sow being fed a pile of meat. Meat that most likely comprised of those that lost their lives here. We decide that it's time to finally exit this village for good. Compared to when we got here, this place is in absolute turmoil, and it's only a matter of time before the people here overrun us. And so we set our sights on Wolfman and head up the road, crossing our fingers that he'll finally give us what it is that we're looking for. Upon finding his camp and handing over the key, Wolfman marks the doctor's location on our map. This is fantastic, except there's one small problem. Not only has he supposedly holed himself up inside, accepting no visitors from the outside world, but his location is on the far edge of the old woods, a place undoubtedly daunting to get to. Wolfman plays this off, claiming that he upheld his end of the deal. He did tell us where he is, after all. Actually getting to him in person, though, that's not his problem. At this point in time, he provides no further help to us. All he gives is a vague hint about finding him in the old woods before he vanishes from the silent forest entirely. And so, completely empty-handed and with only a vague lead to go off of, the only way forward is through the next biome. The old woods await, and I've got a burning feeling that we're in for an unwelcome surprise. The Old Woods are one of the most arduous areas in the game, and even its entrance, an otherwise ordinary-looking bridge, sets the tone for what's to come. You see, this body isn't like the countless others we've seen around Darkwood. because upon interacting with it, very quickly will we learn that this place is full of perils much more difficult than anything we've faced prior. Chompers are everywhere, which means that we'll have to be on guard because we can and will become overrun before we can even think to react. It isn't long before we finally encounter the hideout. However, upon looking around, we realize that it's a bit different than the others. It seems to have been some sort of medical ward at one point, as an array of rooms line the outer walls. Furthermore, this place is much more exposed, an unwelcome change that we'll have to strategize around. Regardless, we light the oven, call the bike man, and scavenge for whatever we can find. Like before, mushrooms and various loot await us. Yet, interestingly, inside this wardrobe, another note. Before us is a journal from the previous inhabitant, and it tells the tale of a man named Masiek who seemed to be losing his mind. In the days after he joined the crew here, he began chanting about someone named Marek, exhibiting bizarre behavior that became so bad that one morning he grabbed his flamethrower and set off into the unknown. Never again did they see him, and who knows if he's even still alive. Interestingly, they make a mention of hazmat suits and the underground tunnels, making it seem like these hideouts, the tunnels, the loot left behind, and the houses that have been brutally burnt to the ground were all part of a larger operation. We now know that people came and went from the Darkwood. So who exactly were they? After surviving our first night in the Old Woods, we notice that the trader has found us here too. Curiously though, upon interacting with him, we find that he's a bit worse for wear. Visibly struggling, the man drops the sack from his back and bends in half, as if out of breath. He shakes the dust off his clothes, then rolls up the sleeve of his seemingly too small jacket. I see some new words written on his forearm. The forest wants to devour you. You're heading straight into its jaws. There is nothing else he says to us, nothing else we say in return. It's a grim interaction that hammers home the fact that this man, whoever he is, does not want us to leave. He's warning us about something. But we're heading home, right? So why is he so adamant about this? After stocking up on supplies and planning our route of attack, we decide that it's time to put this whole Wolfman storyline to bed. He's been teasing us about the doctor throughout our entire journey. He gave us a vague hint about him hiding here, and he's gotta know a way to get to him. Upon setting off to find him, we encounter an ominous structure along the way. Turns out that it's a lodge. The Hunter's Lodge. When we head inside, we can find an eerie photograph depicting a wolf on a road. In another room, a corpse writhes on the ground. Yet most curious of all is this. Inside a room filled with droves of trophy heads and stuffed corpses, we notice that there's one missing. Why? We continue, uncovering a room loaded with bear traps. We navigate them meticulously, before in the very back corner, entangled in a barrage of roots is a body, seemingly morphing into them, and on it, a single wedding ring. An item we've seen before. Inside the pretty lady's room existed the only other wedding ring in the entire game. And thinking about this further, we know that the Wolfman has had this eerie obsession over her. We didn't quite know why at the time, but with this ring and the missing trophy, is this the Wolfman? No, that doesn't make any sense. That would mean that the forest can consume living beings and rip them apart from the inside and meld them together as a new creature entirely. That can't make sense, can it? Then again, the entire existence of Wolfman doesn't either. Entirely confused, we depart north from the hunter's lodge. In the distance, the sound of dogs. Many dogs can be heard barking and growling. If I had to guess, I'd say that this might be where the Wolfman is hiding. And so we make our way inside, fend off the ones that approach us, before, at last, we find him. He is ecstatic to see us. Too ecstatic. His stomach is protruding. Blood drips from his maw. What have you done? The half-consumed, mutilated corpse of the pretty lady sits in the back corner, like a pile of scraps. This is why he wanted her. It wasn't to court her, it wasn't to gain company, it was entirely self-serving. A meal. That is all she was to him. We continue our conversation before Wolfman offers to take us to the doctor's home to dig up clues to his location. We, of course, accept, and after wrapping things up here, we set off back to where this all began. It felt like a lifetime ago, and we recognize nothing about this place. We find a house on the way, hiding an axe that turns out is one of the best weapons in the game, so hell yeah. And as we head further in, we stumble upon a massive chasm lined with gargantuan roots. It's clear that the Darkwood has sunk its teeth into the world below, yet how far down it truly goes, seemingly incalculable. Down the path, another structure stands in our way. Some sort of small medical ward with beds full of corpses lining each room. One room back, we can hear someone calling out to us. It's a young kid appearing on the verge of mutation. They go on about how their head feels like it's splitting, how their body may split in half if they move. They're lost and helpless, and who knows just how long they've been stuck here. We put them out of their misery and continue on. And just as the Wolfman claimed, we find it. The doctor's home. Once inside, we find that the place has been absolutely ransacked. The corpse of Yannick remains in the back room, and dead in the center of the living room, we find a trapdoor locked behind a code. It isn't long before we figure out the answer, as in our periphery, we can spot numbers written across the floor. And so, we put them together and enter the results to reveal that inside awaits a toy, a note with a code to a train car, and finally, the location of the doctor. We make our way back out. It doesn't matter what time it is. Doesn't matter if we have other things to do here. The doctor's the one who got us into this shit, and it's time to get the hell out. On the far edge of the map, we discover a train wreck with a locked door at the very end of it. And after inputting the code and making our way inside, there you are. He didn't expect to see us and pleads for us to get the hell away. We weren't given that same liberty before, though, and so we inch closer and closer. The man smells of alcohol and appears an anxious mess. He goes on about how he did us a favor, how he would have died if it weren't for him. He was just looking for a way out, though, a way to get back home to his family. He tried to help the villagers, he claims, but nothing worked. Everyone hates him, and he has no idea how the hell to fix this place. For a moment, glimpses of humanity begin to shine through. His situation is absolutely abysmal, and to be honest, who can blame him? He's a desperate man who was demanded an impossible task, and at the end of the day, much like everyone else trapped here, all he wants is to go home. After pondering on whether or not we should help him, we decide to show him the location of Tunnel 21, to which he agrees to meet us there. Contrary to prior events, he displays immense gratitude and advises us to stock up on supplies, as once we head through, we're likely never coming back. And so it's here where we have at last gotten what we've been searching for this entire time. The bastard who stole our key and an opportunity to escape this hellhole. It's about that time, so let's see what in the world is behind that door. Waiting for us at the end of Tunnel 21 is the doctor, ready for our cue. We interact with the door and instruct him to open it. After passing through, we find ourselves in some sort of maintenance tunnel, and at the end of it, something odd is murmuring. After investigating, we find yet another man entangled in tree roots, and on him, a cross, yet it's covered in mushrooms and some sort of white substance. We notice that it's oddly soft, and this only gets stranger when we realize the condition that this man has been left in. Out of nowhere, he snaps to life, questioning who we are and if we're perhaps one of them. Following this, he attempts to stand up, yet fails. He flails on the ground, desperately trying to escape the labyrinth of roots he's been confined to. Yet because he's so ingrained into it, his efforts are futile. He begins to tell us about his life, about how he was simply trying to leave where he came from to get back to his family. There was a huge talking tree blocking the way home, uttering something they couldn't comprehend. And so they came here, the tunnels, in hopes of pursuing a better life on the other side. The man pauses for a second, trying to lift himself up to his elbows. He notices a strange dent in his forehead, and rather than feeling around for what it might be, he resorts to digging straight into his own head. We notice that his skull begins to crack, brittle like an egg. Nevertheless, he continues, locked in on finding out whatever the hell this thing is. He goes on about a little stone that he absolutely must get out, yet what he winds up discovering isn't a stone at all. It's a bullet, a strangely soft, deformed bullet. He hands the item to us and utters one final phrase. This is what put me to sleep. And with all life drained from him, he falls limp, lifeless once more. Suddenly, we hear the sound of a door in the distance. The doctor has taken off for some reason, and so we wrap things up here and take off after him. venturing through, we begin to hear noises in the distance. It's clear that we aren't alone, and as the place becomes more flooded, beings unknown wade beneath the surface. Out of nowhere, voices begin calling out from the dark. Other people confined here, just like the man we talked to, are pleading about the fact that they just wanted to pass this tunnel to get home. At its end, we discover strange, electrified growths that retreat into the ground when looked at. Because they were blocking the path ahead, we utilize this mechanic to pass through. Though, right before we're able to escape, we find yet another body. With this. This cross is an exact match to the one from earlier, except here, there are no growths, no white substance, and upon examining the body itself, we discover that this corpse not only has a hole in its forehead, but it appears to be over 2 years old. This guy was shot while trying to pass through this tunnel, yet the Darkwood refused him the privilege of death. Somehow, his entire being was replicated and grown by the roots on the other side, creating a brittle, fragile, and confused clone of his former self. This man and everyone down here died years prior, yet all of them were forcefully kept alive, left to rot eternally while clinging to an artificial lifeline. This means that the woods aren't just causing people to mutate, they aren't just causing them to lose their minds. The Dark One has become a prison and is mercilessly forcing everyone to endure it. Forever. From what it seems, we aren't exactly heading home. Everyone down here seemed to be running from where we're going. But surely, nothing could be worse than where we came from. Right? After emerging from the tunnels, we find ourselves in a flooded, murky environment. We're in a new hideout now, and straight off the bat, we notice that this place is very different from where we came. The organic growths from the underground passage are everywhere, and it's clear that the Darkwood's influence is getting stronger. After opening our map, we learn that we're in a completely new biome known only as the Swamp. And while there's no distinct landmark to shoot for at the current time, it's when we investigate the items left behind when we're pointed in the right direction. All around this hideout are items that we haven't yet seen. A broken compressor, exploding barrels, and gas tanks. It's clear that the inhabitants here before us had left in a hurry. Well, all of them, except for this one. In the center of this hideout is a corpse, and on its body, a map. We notice that it's heavily outdated, not because of time though, but because the woods have expanded and are expanding so rapidly. The note touches on this, mentioning how the tree from the nearby village has grown twice its size in a month. Furthermore, the locals were apparently lurking around the hideout at one point, supposedly peering in on the operation taking place here. It's a beautiful irony, really. The crew sent inside the forest to study it, or becoming the thing being studied by the locals. It's like no one here communicated with each other, like they existed in two entirely separate realities, connected solely by these tunnels. Upon making our way to the closest waypoint on our map, the village, we notice that it's nothing like the one from the Silent Forest. This place has been absolutely decimated and left completely in ruin. A home with the word thieves can be found scrawled on the floor, implying that the villagers began to turn on themselves in a panic. An abode with a floral doormat is ravaged by roots. And surprisingly, upon making our way to the village's rear, someone calls out. Inside a random home awaits a man that is absolutely enthralled to see us. Because he's severely injured and can't move, he's been left here starving and alone for years. He begins to tell us about the tree in the village, as it's been emanating a consistent, ear-piercing wailing for as long as he can remember. Ever since the Darkwood began changing, this sound has only grown, causing him to border on completely losing his mind. He begs us to kill the tree before informing us that the road out of the Darkwood lies just behind it. He doesn't care how we do it, but there's a basement nearby where we can uncover its roots. We are the first person he's come across in years and are, for all intents and purposes, his last hope for survival. Destroy them, pull them, drag them, twist the fuck out of them. You'll find a way, eh? I know you will. After taking him up on his request, we decide to investigate the source of this dreaded sound. We find this so-called talking tree on the far edge of the village, and while we may have expected something unsettling, nothing could have prepared us for this. Above us is a massive, horrifying amalgamation of thousands of bodies. Even worse, these people, much like those in the cave, are clinging to life, force-fed by a network of roots carrying the white substance. With so many people crying out at once, the voices culminate in an ear-piercing cacophony. Only one seems to acknowledge us here, and it's a man that's locked eyes with us, pointing at something in the far distance. Upon homing in and listening closer, we note that we're unable to make out what exactly it is that he's saying. However, there is one word we can discern. Radio. The existence of this tree truly drives home just how horrid the plague's effects were, as everyone confined here aren't even in their original bodies. These people are all replicas, yet they'll never know it. They argue, they scream, they cry, and much like the sleeper from the Silent Forest, they seem to carry this odd ignorance as to how dire their lives have truly become. Continuing our search through the village, we discover the trapdoor the man was referencing. After entering and making our way through, though, we frustratingly come face to face with a path entirely flooded with swamp water. Unfortunately, the man wasn't aware of this small hindrance, and so we'll need to find an oxygen tank somewhere in the swamp. We know that we have a broken compressor back at our camp, so if we can find a way to fix it, we can use it to fill up a tank. Upon returning to the man and filling him in, he informs us that there's a group somewhere out there called the Elephants, and if we're to find an oxygen tank, then they should be our next stop. Nights in the swamp are an absolute mess, and it isn't long before our home is raided. Red chompers pour in from every direction, while savages and God knows what beats on the windows in the distance. It's overwhelming here, but all we can do is expend every bit of ammo we have in hopes of survival. Suddenly, we begin to hear the sound of a radio, and upon investigating, we find that it's broadcasting a distorted, broken phrase. As its volume builds, it only becomes clearer. Something is calling out to us, telling us to come back. And bizarrely, right after the radio short circuits, we utter something a bit out of character. Somehow, the stranger seems to know who this is. Either that, or he's blindly following its call. As the night continues, lights begin to flicker before we're greeted by rabid dogs. And I won't lie, I have no idea how this happened, but there was one point where I was being chased by one single dog. Just one. And, yeah. Of all things, I died from this. So, don't judge. Nevertheless, upon waking up the next day to the morning ambience embracing us like an old friend, we decide that it's time to figure out our next destination. Like before, we drop our loot at the workbench, shut off the generator, and hunt down the traitor. Except, hold on. On the ground lies a corpse eerily similar to the traitor, and next to him, his severed head, bloodied and overgrown with white fungus, and a note etched into its visor. Liar. This man followed us through the tunnels, likely hoping to convince us not to progress any further, yet all he was given was the same fate as every corpse he passed along the way. We have no idea who killed him, and not once is it ever explained. Alongside his severed head are replicas of a journal and the Door 21 key, both eerily similar to our journal and Door 21 key. And thinking back, we did have a strange feeling about this guy. I mean, he looked so intensely familiar. We even mentioned how it felt like we were looking into our own reflection at times. So, is this? No, that couldn't be possible. I mean, we saw ourselves in the Silent Forest. We did see ourselves, right? Coincidentally, central to the compound awaits a group of people known only as the Three, and upon interacting with them, we realize that they are insanely grotesque. Adorned with bloodied masks and various bits of brush, they utter not a single word, instead offering to trade with their stash of loot that looks eerily similar to the traders. Regardless, we utilize them for their resources and plan out our next move. We've got to find some compressor parts, and we need to track down the elephants. And so, without wasting any more time, onward we go. Near our camp, we discover a landmark called the Junkyard. This place is massive, and upon utilizing a shovel, we can uncover troves of highly valuable resources. But this wouldn't be the only thing that we would find here, as central to this landmark. Well. After talking with the doctor, we find that he isn't looking too hot. We know that this man has been inside the Dark One for years, since the very beginning of this entire shit show. Yet for some reason, within just one day, he looks like this. This could mean that this place is expediting people's infections, but whether it's from physical contact with other creatures, the water, or even the air, we have no clue. The man greets us before reminiscing about his life before the plague. He, at one point, lived a simple life, delivering babies, treating milk teeth from kids. But then the plague started, and we were the ones that cut them off from the outside world. First it was us, then the ones, and no help ever came.
It's different now. The fields are flooded. Everyone in the village is dead. So much work for nothing.
After bidding our farewells, we continue searching through junk piles, eventually uncovering the compressor parts. It's a great find, no doubt. However, it's when we depart this place, when we find one that isn't so great. Emitting a trail of smoke is a crash site, and resting inside, a man's corpse with a wire helmet on his head. Piotrek is dead. Dead because of us. Because we helped him realize his outlandish dream to build a rocket that we knew would destroy itself, we played a direct hand in his demise. Had we never even met this guy, he would likely still be alive. But he's here. His experiment failed, and we'll have to live with that for as long as we're alive. After repairing our compressor, surviving another night, and setting off for the elephants, we, in the middle of the woods, encounter an odd sight. Someone is digging in the ground, and given their mannerisms, they initially look like another creature. It isn't until we approach, however, when we realize that it's the doctor. Again. We find that his condition has digressed even further. Branches and what appear to be sigils adorn his forehead and clothes. He's a lot more jittery and agitated, and his eye is missing.
I haven't slept a wink in many days. I don't think this is good for me. I hear this voice all the time. Can you hear it? Her heavenly voice. I'm a bit fed up with her. A bit. A tiny, little bit. She must know I'm heading her way. I'm doing everything I can. I don't eat. I don't sleep. I search under every rock, under every fucking bush. She must understand it. She must give me some time. Some little time off. Tell her this, will you?
All throughout our journey, we've seen references to a voice calling out, even experiencing this phenomenon for ourselves in the forest dream. He refers to this being as she, and as we've progressed in our journey, her call has only become more potent. This leaves us to wonder who exactly this is. We know the Darkwood phenomenon has been getting stronger too, so are these two related? After what feels like hours of exploring, we finally find the compound the elephants are hiding out in. Yet, strangely, outside of it, So, in my playthrough, I inadvertently killed the doctor because I thought he was a savage. As we can see, the man's condition had progressed to such a point to where he was entirely unrecognizable. In just 2 days, he had become fully transformed. A morbid, depressing fate. We head inside the property, disarming a trail of bear traps and banking the scrap metal along the way. We use it to repair a destroyed generator sitting outside of this home before starting it up and heading inside. On the floor, we can find flower petals everywhere, with their scent filling the air around us. And in the next room, the elephants await. And so we learn why they've garnered their nickname, as before us are 2 children hiding behind their mother, all sporting gas masks. They ask us who we are, as we notice the smell of rot lingering in the air. Like with everyone else on this journey, we say not a word to her, much to her dismay. We're not from around here, she notices, before blaming our ghastly appearance on the fact that we've been breathing the rotten air outside. It isn't long, though, before she brings up a name. Marcinek. Stupid child. He went out and never came back. He was on about how his granny will take him mushrooming. I have no idea where I told him he cannot go outside. I told him the devil will find him, take off his mask, and take him away. I would look for him, but you want my trust? Bring my Marcinek back. My stupid Marcinek. Find him and bring him home. She gives us the key to his room, informing us that we can find a hint at his whereabouts inside. Curiously, though, upon gossiping with her, she mentions how there's yet another child of hers in the wild. Her precious darling, her blessed child. His love fills our tanks with clean air. For this, we are forever grateful to him. For the clean air, for the oxygen tanks, for these beautiful masks, and the book in which the devil has revealed his true image along with his evil plan. My son took it away from the trees with his own hands and brought it here to us. I do want to say, I find her wording here interesting. His love fills our tanks with clean air is a bizarre thing to say about someone who isn't even here. As we know, this place is extremely hostile, and for someone who's so overprotective of her kids, she extends an eerie amount of grace towards him. With our key in hand, we unlock and enter Marcinek's room, discovering just how abysmal his life truly is. We find a doormat used for a bed. Next to it, a pile of junk with a single mushroom. And inside a small backpack, a drawing marking our map with his approximate location. While it's crude and eerie, one thing is clear. Wherever he is highly infected with plague. And there are mushrooms everywhere around it. After surviving another night, we investigate the circled region on our map. We know we're in search of a place infested with fungus. However, on the way, there's another spot that catches our eye. Known as the Quarry, we can find a small community of villagers hiding out, and upon listening in on their conversations, we realize that these are the same people from the Silent Forest. Because we killed the sow, they left in absolute desperation, searching for anything, anywhere, to give them salvation. Unbeknownst to them, though, they've only ventured further into the Darkwood's jaws, as this place, this is so much worse than where they came. As we sneak our way in, we can find the sow's rotting corpse tied to a tree. It's clear that these people are hopeless, and this point is only compounded when those guarding its entrance notice us. After taking them out, we're able to enter the main area of their camp, and all throughout the air is the sound of coughing and plague. On the beds, people cower in various stages of infection. These people are living on the brink of death. It isn't long before we're attacked, yet it's hard to fault them. They despise us, and to them, we are just as much of a monster as anything else here. We've killed their food source, wreaked havoc on the life they were clinging to back home. And here, well, we have no other choice but to fight back. We murder every living soul inside the quarry, at last forcing the villagers into eternal rest. Officially, we have ruined their lives and killed them. Again, no better than the monsters that lurk here. A short while later, we stumble upon a landmark called the Mushroom Glade. This place is much like the drawing, overrun with white mushrooms. Everything is a sickly pale, and curiously, random villagers can be found that refuse to acknowledge us. In fact, it seems like they don't even exist, like they're a ghost of someone else, like this entire place is perhaps one big replica of its own. After passing an overgrown shrine, we enter a dilapidated home. Massive mushrooms have broken in, making this place feel akin to a maze. In the back corner, we discover a shelf, and while it contains a handful of loot, most notably is this key on a key ring. A colorless key, it feels soft to the touch. There's a drawing of 3 flowers etched onto the key ring. Now, wait a minute. Flowers. Flowers, no. Flowers, no. Here. Earlier in the swamp village, we noticed this doormat adorned with flowers, so I've got a hunch that this key leads to somewhere inside. Let's keep this in mind. We'll get back to it. Back in the glade, we discover a woman rocking in a chair alone. Someone called the Mushroom Granny. An old woman sits on a weathered rocking chair. Her sleep is deep and peaceful. A handful of red mushrooms grows out of her thick hair. Curiously, the game gives us the option to pick the mushrooms off of this lady's head. It's clear that she's a replica, likely of the real Granny that lived in the village. The floor of the hut is soft as a sponge. My footsteps are almost noiseless. The woman's sleep is too deep for her to hear anything. I reach for the most prominent mushroom and delicately pull its stem. It easily detaches from the old lady's pale head. The old lady slowly opens her eyes. For a moment, she stares into space with an absent gaze. Finally, she becomes aware of my presence. Upon waking, the Granny is confused about why we're here. It seems that nobody ever enters the mushroom glade simply to visit, so we have to be after something. From here, we're given 3 options. We can point at the door, likely harboring the kid. We can do nothing, or we can eat her. It's an absolutely unhinged option that we can legitimately follow through with if we so desire. Doing so would grant us access to the kid immediately. However, that would be really mean, so we aren't going to do that. Upon pointing to the door, she brushes it off, explaining how there's nothing in there that would interest us. Yet, it's when we show her the drawing when she changes her tune. A few days ago, a child appeared here, a boy. He thinks I'm his granny. Grandma? He was very nervous. He kept repeating a rhyme over and over again. He hid in the corner and sat there for what must have been the whole day. I think he relaxed in the end. He seems to like it here. He draws. I think he likes to draw, but his drawings aren't very childlike. His parents are still alive, right? Are you his father? Brother? He's in the other room. Here's the key. I'll let him go if he wishes to go with you. After taking the key, we unlock the door next to her, unveiling a barren room. And by the back wall, a boy sits alone. Morsenek. We notice that he's visibly terrified, whispering something over and over beneath his breath. It's clear that our appearance isn't doing us any favors here, and so we kneel down and extend our hand as an act of goodwill. Immediately, he curls into a ball, his whispers growing louder. And it's here where we can finally make out what he's saying. One little bear ate a bowl of soup. Then another bear came, and there were 2. 4 little bears made a sudden pow. Along came the 5th and took a little bow. Disguised as a poem, Morsenek is telling us a code, 1245. But what for? We'll see soon enough. We attempt to put the boy on our back to take him back to his family. However, he makes it clear that he doesn't want to leave. He begins screaming, the poem now piercing the stale air inside this home. And noticing this, Granny decides to interject. Please leave him be. He doesn't want to go, can't you see? Leave him at once. Do you hear? Suddenly, a wooden creak breaks her speech. In the frenzy, her armchair gives way and sends her falling. Her head smashes against the ground, shattering into pieces. Her thin arms break like dry twigs. A colorless goo seeps from her body. It's the white substance, the thing we've seen all around the Darkwood. This goes to show just how fragile the beings here truly are. These people aren't just imperfect copies. They are quite literally shells of their former selves. And so, with Marcinek completely out of options, we forcefully return him to his family. His mother thanks us for our duty before berating him for leaving. Nevertheless, she gives us one of their tanks as a gesture of gratitude. Yet, it's when we open the valve to check it, when we notice that it's completely empty. The woman pushes our hand away and reminds us not to waste it, leaving us to wonder, if they aren't breathing clean air, then what exactly is it, if anything? After departing from the elephants, we decide to investigate around their compound. Marcinek had to have been reciting that code for a reason, so where exactly does it lead? It isn't long before we stumble upon a locked shack, and upon entering 1245, alas, we gain access. Inside the shack, we can hear the buzz of flies swarming. This place smells absolutely horrid, and it's clear that something has been dead here for a long time. On the table, we can find a book mentioning some sort of radio tower. The pages are glued together, creating a rotting clump of paper. There's a note at the bottom. Radio tower, door 21, 12 p.m. At the top, I can only make out the words devil horns or go. The rest is unreadable. Door 21 at a radio tower. This means that the door 21 key isn't solely for the underground tunnel we passed through. There's another door 21, the way we, and likely many others like us, use to make our way here. This means that there are actually two options that we can use to exit the Darkwood. We can burn the tree, setting everyone confined here free. Or we can leave them, saving ourselves through the alternative door 21, yet banishing everyone to rot here forever. After putting the book down, we turn around to see what's causing the stench inside this place, and what we find. Adorned with flower petals and surrounded by oxygen tanks, the body of a boy, her boy, lies on the ground. This is what she meant by his love filling their tanks. They are quite literally breathing in the stench of a dead, rotting corpse. At this point in our journey, we have everything we need to burn the tree. Upon filling up our tank and returning to the village, we can recall that we had grabbed a key with a floral pattern from the Mushroom Granny's home. And after tracking down the corresponding house, we find, as we expected, a locked door. Inside are a myriad of paintings, all crafted by the real-life granny that once lived here. She seemed to have an affinity for the local plant life, as her first two paintings from 1972 and 1973 both depict detailed vases with flowers. It's when we get to the third painting, crafted in August of 1975, though, when things start to get a bit weird. A caption at the back of the painting reads, Light 08, 1975. Before us is an illustration of the night sky as a bright ball of white light falls to the earth. It is completely out of place in these paintings, meaning that this must have been some sort of regional spectacle. As we can see, this object is colorless, Just like every other facet of the plague we've come across so far, the colorless substance, the white mushrooms, the replicas, even the entire region encompassing the mushroom granny's home, all of it was lifeless, dead, bleached a bright white. This painting implies that whatever plagued the Darkwood did not come from Earth. It's something with an unknown origin, something sentient, creating copies of victims, calling others to its source. These roots all come from somewhere, and for the past 12 years have fed an inexplicable lifeblood all throughout this forest. So what is it truly that's been killing this place? And where exactly are we headed? We enter the village basement and progress to the flooded passageway. And once we enter it, we fall into yet another nightmare, waking up in a cellar. Lining the outer walls are droves of wooden crates and a massive tank that we note still has a lot of good gas inside. And upon heading south and out the exit, we enter a hallway leading into the same room again. Once more we continue, winding up again in another replica, except this time, something's happening. After hearing someone banging on the door, a voice calls for us to continue further. It seems that this place is coming alive, but what exactly is it telling us? We find that the cow carcass has now digressed into a carrion, and a small nook has opened up on the right side. Bugs are now swarming, and in the distance, we can hear something massive trying to force its way in. Upon picking up the axe and continuing into the next room, we can see that the eastward nook is growing. And after leaving for one final time, before us, a stairway leads to the surface, yet it's covered with a barricade. And so, with our newfound axe, we decide to hack away, before, out of nowhere, someone tells us to stop. Of course, we continue, before they transform into a black chomper and viciously attack us. After waking back up, we find ourselves in the present-day version of the cellar we just awoke from, and on the back wall, the tank still containing good gasoline. We open the valve to which it begins to spill out, and upon taking a look at where it leads, this is it. The true form of the white light that fell from the sky. Before us is a giant, pulsating heart with a massive network of roots leading in every direction. If I had to guess, this is where the white substance is coming from. We are quite literally at the heart of this entire epidemic and are one swing of the torch away from setting this all ablaze. In the distance, the cries of thousands of souls ring out, thousands of people burning alive. It is a sight that we never thought we'd see, but we've done it. Salvation at last. After returning to the surface, we come face to face with the inferno. The tree is burning, yet even still is doing everything it can to mitigate the blaze. This process, we note, is gonna take a while, and so if we hope to pass, we've gotta head back to our hideout for one final night. Darkwood's final night is a burden. The radio tunes itself to broadcast those burning alive, like a grim reminder of its refusal to die. Suddenly, our hideout catches fire, and out of the blaze, people engulfed in flames. It's just a handful at first, a runner here, a runner there, but as the hours pass, they rapidly multiply. By 6 a.m., the morning synth fades in. However, reprieve is the last thing crossing our mind. The pursuit of the burning ones are overwhelming, and it feels like at any point we can make a wrong turn and meet a sudden death. As the final minutes approach, we realize that we no longer have anywhere to go, resorting to our only tried and true method of survival. And so we fight back, downing them one by one. And right as we think we're done for, we've done it. The final morning. We return to the village, praying that the tree is dead. And upon arriving at its site, it's gone. No more screams, no more roots. All of it has burned to the ground. Upon passing through, we find ourselves on the outskirts of town. It's the road from the photo. The road home. North of it, we can find an interesting sight. It's a crop field with a scarecrow and 3 trees in the middle. Oddly, on 2 of them, we can spot dead bodies tied up. Yet all the third contains is a bloodied rope with a piece of hazmat suit stuck to it. Upon examining the scarecrow, we find that it's wearing a hazmat suit, a very unconventional sight. And continuing on, we find a camp littered with the corpses of military soldiers, samples of the white substance, and notes about the Darkwood phenomenon's attributes. Supposedly, the forest had formed a honeycomb structure, with each cell ranging from 80 to 360 square kilometers. And it supposedly spreads so rapidly that by the time this was written, only 15% of the actual trees here were real. Now, upon searching around this camp, we can find a handful of dead savages lying about. After putting 2 and 2 together, we can deduce that these were the cause of the mass death here. And while this otherwise wouldn't be a surprising discovery considering where we came from, it's when we open our journal, when we're given the final piece of the puzzle. On page 1, The very first bit of lore we were given in the entire game. The following was written. September 12th, 1987. I don't remember anything since the attack on our camp. Somehow I'm wearing a coat, so I must have changed my clothes on the way here. I don't recognize myself anymore. I can barely hold this pencil. Has my body changed? I no longer feel hunger or thirst. What has happened to me? The missing body on the tree wasn't just a random person that escaped. The hazmat suit wasn't just left up for unexplainable decor. It was us. We were the ones that were taking part in the research operation going on here. We were the ones that were attacked by savages and tied to a tree with 2 others in our crew. And we were the ones that escaped, exchanged clothes with a scarecrow, and fled the swamp in hopes of survival. This is why we were found clinging to life in the old woods. Yet because the doctor injected us with that substance, we could never remember our life before that point. We depart our campsite, at last venturing down the road home. Strangely, scattered around are bodies frozen in place. We did burn the tree, though, so how does this make sense? Curiously, there is one person that's still alive, and it's the old man, desperately inching his way home. Unfortunately, we cannot interact with him. We can't talk to him. We can't help him. All we can do is leave him be. And considering that the next town is over 25 kilometers away, it's unclear if he will ever make it. As we continue down the road, we notice that the number of bodies are ramping up. Not only that, but they're morphing into unexplainable amalgamations of human and root. It's appearing like something isn't quite right, but again, we burned the tree. At the end of the road, we discover a path leading into the eastern woods. We aren't quite sure where it leads, but it's the only way forward, and the only way we pray finally takes us home. In the midst of a new patch of woods, we find that our equipment is gone. Like before, the path continues east, and so we set off for one final push. As we wander, a welcoming sound fades in, before suddenly, this can't be real, can it? It's the end of the woods. Power lines, civilization, home is near. We take one last look at the hell we just escaped from and continue our way east. And it isn't long before we find it. Never before in our lives have we been so thrilled to witness the monotonous gray monoliths of apartment blocks, the glum sarcasm of other residents. It's boring and ordinary, but to us, the greatest sight we've ever seen. We pass through the courtyard and say hello to our neighbor before heading inside, checking our mail, greeting the friendly janitor on our floor, and making our way to our apartment. And at long last, home sweet home. It feels unreal, like everything we had witnessed in the days leading up to this was all but one big nightmare. But we're safe now, and everything is fine. We take off our coat before heading up to our living room. Our dog Zurich greets us, likely wondering where the hell we've been and where his food is. No matter, we're as happy as can be to see him. We get cleaned up in the bathroom before heading over to the kitchen. Turns out that our wife left a note. We heat our dinner on our thankfully normal cooktop, and it's perfect. It has been a long, arduous journey, though, and our bed is calling. So we head into our room, gather one last look at the horizon, and whisk ourselves away. Finally home. And so, there we have it, Darkwood, a game about a crazy sickness that led to us heading to its source, burning it all away, and saving the day. The end. So I'm sure you're all thinking the same thing that I am, that there is no way that that was the end of it. It was a perfect ending. Too perfect. Too simple. While we could leave everything here, it was when I played it again when I realized that there's something in the basement. Beneath the apartment block, opposite our mailbox, was a staircase leading here. A confined, darkened maze resembling some sort of prison. In the distance, we can hear rustling, like we aren't the only ones here. Yet we should be safe, right? We navigate the path all the way to the very back before encountering an open door. And inside, some cans, sacks of potatoes, and a radio. After turning it on, everything initially seems ordinary. However, it's when we begin to flip through the stations. The radio short circuits, just like the ones from the forest. Weirded out, we head back upstairs. It's probably wise to take a second look at everything here, and so we take a little detour to find this. A baby screams from within this home, piercing the once comforting atmosphere we've cozied up to. The door is expectedly locked, and while this isn't out of the ordinary, it's when we try to leave, when it gets a bit weird. On the floor, helpless and alone, was a fetus, just like the one in the forest nightmare. It's like a terrible approximation of what a crying baby should be. So why is this here? Hesitant, we head upstairs. We're moving a bit slower now, and this time, something catches our eye. Something is clearly wrong, and I've got a funny feeling that we aren't out of the woods quite yet. After heading back into our apartment, we decide to investigate it a bit closer. We take off our coat and make our way to the living room, and upon closer inspection, we notice something under our couch. Something growing. Tree roots have inexplicably made their way inside our home, something that can't and shouldn't be possible. We head to the kitchen to grab a screwdriver, and upon returning and pulling back the floor, we find that they're alive and have grown all throughout our home. Obsessively, we pull back every floor panel in hopes of finding its source, the sky darkening all around us. And it isn't until we inspect our room when we finally find we awaken in a place unlike anything we've ever seen. This structure is grand, and we're curled up in the middle of it. After getting up, we encounter others like us. A woman murmurs in her sleep. A man smiles like he's having a nice dream. No one seems to realize the state they're currently in. We discover a small tunnel and head through it, winding up on what appears to be the leg of a massive tree. We notice that we can feel the earth pulsating beneath us, and scattered everywhere are bodies, all fast asleep. They all seem to smile. They embrace the remains of their loved ones, and some even hum lightly. It's comfort. These people are embraced within an eternal comfort. Meanwhile, their physical bodies are rotting away. We progress further inward, passing body after body, the roots growing thicker. We have no idea where we're going or what this place is, but it sure looks like hell. After walking for what feels like hours, we find a massive white light, and upon approaching it, we notice that a comforting warmth begins to wash over us. It's the source of these pulsing roots, and all around it, we can find people worshipping it like a god. This is what was calling everyone to it all throughout the Dark Wood, and upon interacting with it for ourselves, we become awash under its influence. I feel an overwhelming, soothing feeling of security and happiness. The vast valley at the bottom of which I stand curves upwards, closing over my head. The rust of distant trees turns into a single, silent murmur. I feel like I'm coming home, to my flat, to my room with a window and a bed. What we thought was caused by a giant pulsating heart was in actuality this thing. It's what the bright light was, why it was represented as a fetus in the forest dream. It was like a seed implanting itself into the earth, and over the course of 12 long years, it would grow into a phenomenon completely unexplainable. Considering what it looks like, I don't blame anyone for thinking it's a god. It has no physical structure. It emanates a mesmerizing white glow. It's something humanity has never been prepared to comprehend, and what it's doing to people, keeping them entranced in blissful dreams while sapping the life out of them for God knows what. That is a hell that we cannot even conceptualize. Everyone around us is dreaming, awash with comfort, much like we were in our apartment. Yet, because we were the only ones to break the facade, to notice the cracks in reality around us, that is why we're here. After pulling ourselves away from the being, we decide to investigate around it, passing bodies in various states of decay. Before long, we notice one that's speaking, and upon getting a closer look, it's holding a flamethrower. This is Masiek, the one who was going on about his kin in the old woods, the one who took off into the unknown and never came back. The being had called him to it. However, because he was already under its influence, there was nothing he could do to fight back. We notice that he's uttering something in his sleep. He believes that his flamethrower is his daughter. Nevertheless, we need this item, yet as we try to take it, he doesn't give in so easily. We set the place ablaze, while Masiek desperately crawls towards us. The screams of souls once dreaming, now literally set on fire, pierce through the depths. Nobody here wants to die. However, this is no way to live. As the place burns, it inevitably catches up to us, and just like the others, we find ourselves confined to the ground, left to crawl ourselves to death. We get as far as we can, yet we know it's already over. And after one last breath, we slump over, at last meeting death. A mercy for us, a mercy for everyone here. A great fire consumed the woods for a couple days, gradually claiming many of its inhabitants. The fire consumed the last road leading into the heart of the woods. The three outcasts wearing old rags and scrap, who, grief-stricken under the enormous, completely burned tree, didn't even attempt to run. The elephant family, who didn't leave their house at the swamp, even as the flames started consuming it. The chicken lady, who set out into the woods in search of her sister and lost her way. And the last living inhabitant of the flooded village, consumed by the flames at the very end of the road leading home. But not everyone perished. Piotrek didn't live to see the fire. Before the flames appeared, he rose above the treetops in his rocket made of scrap. As he looked through the small spaceship window, he smiled for the last time. The Milky Way's stars looked so beautiful, even now when moving away at a huge speed. The fate of the man with the wolf snout remains unknown. And that, my friends, is Dark One. one of the most horrifying games that I have ever played. What began as a simple day in an overgrown forest turned out a living nightmare. The woods this entire time were being fueled by an eldritch substance known only as the Being. And during our entire journey, contrary to what we thought, we were never heading home. The further we went, the closer it got, its influence only growing, affecting the locals in ever-increasing severity. Turns out that we were never just a random explorer, and it's wild that allusions to that were dropped from the very beginning of the game. Our entire existence has been nothing but a fragment of a larger entity. The military, sent into the Dark One to study, contain, and destroy everything inside it, no matter how many lives were taken in the process. It's a beautiful coincidence that we wound up in the situation we did, captured by savages and kept alive by the one man inside the woods that only ever tried to help others. This entire time, we were a major part of the problem. A monster terrifying the villagers inside the Dark One, and an outsider who let not a soul leave. I cannot even imagine the pain and suffering the villagers went through. Families fascinated by a simple bright white light that fell from the sky, completely oblivious to the total destruction that it would soon bring to the place they called home. Again, it was like a seed, sprouting, spreading, infecting everything in sight with the sickness not even of this world. And for one, that, my friends, we'll never know. In the end, it's at least promising that we atone for what we've done. And while this may have been a fiery end for many, at least we can rest easy knowing that the Being will never infect another again. You've got to be kidding me. You know, as I've been writing this, during the sleepless, endless nights of raising a newborn, I've grown a new appreciation for the silence of nightfall. It's the one time in the world when everything is quiet, and it gives rise to moments when you can truly and fully appreciate incredible works of art like Dark One. I don't quite know why I never played this game earlier. It has, for years, been mentioned on forums, on Reddit. Even my fellow creators BeamBuddy and Pyro made videos on it recently. It truly is something special, and the story crafted by the three absolute geniuses at Acid Wizard is something that'll stick with me for the rest of my life. There is truly nothing like putting on the morning ambience while getting work done, writing, going on about life, and this entire experience has really taught me that horror gaming can truly transcend its medium. Life will kick your ass. It'll beat you down. It'll drive you to your wit's end, sending you to the brink of giving up on everything. But if Darkwood has taught me one thing, it's that if you stick it out long enough, the morning light will always come. Well, until we wake up and realize that we're all living in a blissful nightmare and are all actually having the life sucked out of us as we speak. So that's great. Life is a simulation, none of this is real, the moon is alive, I am going to bed. Thank you guys for joining me on this passion project, truly. And I promise, I'll see you real soon. Oh yeah, and go play Darkwood and do a different path than I did. Until next time, my friends.